going to be talking about very shortly as soon as Rabbi Kurtz gets us started.
Recording. We're good.
Women of Valor.
Listen, I grew up in a Shomer Shabbat house, and we never got into a car on Shabbos, that's for sure. And then over the years, things changed and so on. And my kids, when we first moved here, when we had to get to shul, my kids would duck down. They were so embarrassed, so humiliated that they were in a car on Shabbos.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so I achieved.
You achieved it, and you have a radiant presence. We can all see that. You are radiant. It's a pleasure that you're back and that you're with us and you're uplifting this session and to be a part of, celebrating National Women's Month.
Yes.
Your month, and we're celebrating. We're glad that you both showed up. Yeah.
Yes. Annabel Lee.
Okay, so we are going to get our conversation started by Annabel Lee, which both Rabbi Kurtz and I feel very strongly about because it is such a powerful poem. And we'll see why. I'm not going to give a big introduction. Everybody knows Edgar Allan Poe. We know he's a great American writer. He lived a very short life, lived barely 40 years. Came from a very distraught family situation. Father left when he was 1 year old. The mother died a year later. Grew up in the South in Richmond, Virginia. He with a stepfather. He didn't get along, but with his adoptive family, they never adopted him formally. But he did write some beautiful short stories, as we know. Pit and the Pendulum is one of them that comes to mind, and beautiful poetry. So Annabel Lee, we chose. Okay, so what I'm going to have us do is I'm going to ask our participants to read a paragraph, and at the end of the paragraph, I'll throw a question or two out, and then, the person that's reciting can be the first one to pipe in. If you want to turn it over to somebody else to make a comment, we can do that. But that's the idea, is to get us all participating in this and to feel the depth of feeling that Edgar Allan Poe makes him an exceptional poet. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so Ruth, you appeared first, okay? Ruth, why don't you just give us the first stanza, okay, slowly, and then I'll give you guys a question or two out, and then we can discuss it.
It was
Ruth.
many, many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a certain maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And the maiden, she lived with no other thought than to be loved and be loved by me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so the first question that comes to mind is, how is Annabel Lee described here? How would you describe her in terms of her physiognomy, her age,
Well,
how is she presented?
I personally think that it doesn't have to be age.
Okay.
Someone young or someone my young age.
Okay.
In other words, it's the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
Let me put it this way. In other words, if you're married, have a partner, and you have a good relationship, you love him and he loves you. Excuse me. I mean, I'm very old-fashioned. It's
okay.
a G. Okay.
Okay. The word I want to throw out, for us to look at is the word maiden. Okay, she is a maiden. A maiden is like a basula. She's a basula. She's somebody who is virginal, and And that's for, we need to think, you could always be virginal at any age. I mean, in your mind, you can be virginal. I mean, it doesn't, it's not a physical, it can't be a spiritual state. You feel virginal, you're young, feel young at heart. I agree with you. This could apply, but here, she is a maiden, okay? And
It seems like this was a first love
okay,
for both of them, and if there's nothing like a first love for both partners,
right.
and you think of no one else but the other party.
Okay, and what do you make of the word kingdom? The kingdom by the sea is going to come up again a couple of times during the poem. What is he trying to get across, Gloria? I think you're on the right track about the kingdom by the sea. Okay.
So I would add, I think onto Gloria's point, it sounds like Edgar Allan Poe is trying to create this childhood innocence and purity. You think of like almost like a fairy tale kingdom, and all they want is to love each other, and that's it. Everything's pure, innocent, docile, and pristine. That's the vision I get from this stanza.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would add perfect. Perfect. I would add that this is a very romanticized. He is considered to be a romantic poem, a poet, very romantic. In his mind, the consummation is not that important. The important is the idea of him, she loves him, and I love her. And this is the ideal state. This is what we all want, a pure love, like Rabbi Kurt says, a pure love. And he's looking back from an older age, because many, many years ago, it's not like he's looking back, maybe he's in his 80s, 90s, who knows what, but he's looking back at a very pure, innocent state, almost like a Garden of Eden, which will come up later. we have some parsha to bring in here, okay? All right, so we're on the right track. Okay, so, all right, so Gloria, it's your turn, okay?
Yes. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me.
Coveted her and me. Okay, so what do we further learn about their relationship here? What do we further learn, okay, that we didn't know in the first stanza?
Now we know I was a child.
Yes.
And she was a child. So
right.
First we said that a maiden could be or might be a little older, one who has never been loved before. But now we see that he says they were both children.
Yes.
But then again, the word child, I don't know, doesn't necessarily have to mean that somebody is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as a child. Somebody could be older.
Mm-hmm.
And because one hasn't experienced life,
Right.
Maybe he's saying that they both were children.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And notice what he says here, that we love with a love that was more than love. I mean, a very special, refined, a very intense, spiritual, platonic love. And the one word that I'd like to throw out is like my soulmate, that we're destined to be together, bashert. We are
Right.
We are destined.
That's platonic.
Yeah, it's a platonic, more than love. I mean, love can be on a physical level, but he's saying it's more than just a physical level. It's something beyond that. He can't. It's so beyond that even the winged seraphs of heaven, it's such a spiritual level that they are looking down, perhaps. And what are they doing? What does coveting mean? Gloria, what does that bring to mind? Coveting.
I don't know.
The Sach mode.
No. God, covet. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's, right? They shall not covet. I mean, the idea here is that their love is so strong that the serfs, and we'll talk about this, there's the Tanakh on serfs that we can talk about in a few minutes, that even these high angels that don't have any will of their own, but they do have some type of feeling that God puts in them, and they follow God's command, that they coveted, that they were jealous, if you will, of their unconsummated spiritual love. Okay. All right. Okay.
And also, when you talk about a child, and the relationship of a child towards someone else, I don't know, it's a different love than a maiden's love. I mean, this is how my mind goes, than a maiden's love towards a contemporary of hers. If you're 7 and you have you have feelings for somebody else, is it the same feeling that a 14-year-old would have? I'm not so sure.
Beautifully put. I have a picture of my younger brother, Michael, who's a cantor and a Balkori in Queens, and my cousin, Carol, who lives up in Orange, Connecticut. When they were they were born 8 days apart.
Okay.
And we lived right around the corner from each other in the Bronx. And they had such a close relationship that my younger brother has his arm around his cousin, and it is so beautiful. And you're talking about 3-year-olds that have that type of affinity. And to this day, 70 years later, they still are very close to each other. It's a beautiful relationship. Let's move on. Okay. All right. The next, I'm going to have Rabbi Kurtz do the next stanza.
And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a psalter in his kingdom by the sea. Psalter?
Okay, so what is going on here? Okay, what is going on? What are you coming away from, Rabbi? Having just read this paragraph, when you know that this very, very special, unrefined, natural, spiritual love, children, maiden to young adults, what happened here? And what happened very suddenly to change the picture?
Well, it's interesting because he first makes it sound like nature is taking her away from him. But then he makes a reference to these highborn kinsmen, which makes it sound like she was born of higher class, and they disapproved of this relationship that they had.
Yeah, it mirrors what's going on here in California, right? With the royal progeny, right? The royal progeny, outcasts from the motherhood, the Queen Elizabeth and her courtiers, and not fitting into their whatever. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to go in that direction, but I just throw it out. It comes to mind.
But it's interesting because he so I looked at the definition of sepulcher, I think it's how it's pronounced.
Yes, sepulcher.
It's a small room or monument cut in rock or built of stone, which a dead person is later buried. So I'm wondering if he's saying, figuratively, she was dead to him once she was taken away. I'm trying to figure out what it means, like how she was taken away from him.
Yeah, that leaves a lot to the imagination. But as you pick up correctly, that it could be that the kinsmen were the ones that took her away, broke up the relationship, and in his mind, it was as if she died. She died to him, physically, spiritually, and now she's in a sepulcher. He no longer can put her up in a pedestal. That's a key word. I have to mention the word pedestal because we just discussed the cactus. That was one of the short stories that we covered, and it was very quickly about a man who envisions a relationship with a woman that he never ever really got to know, she didn't get to know him, but he put her on the highest pedestal possible, and she rejects him. And the story is about him just attending the marriage when she marries somebody else, and he has to go and be a part of this experience and learn what it is to have a deflated ego, the vanity of it all. And there's this little bit of a tinge of that quality here, that he's put her up on a high pedestal. Either the angels coveting her bore her away, or else it was her high-flung kinsman that bore her away. But in any case, she's still by the sea. She's still in this romantic state for him by the sea, but now she is no longer as vibrant, perhaps, but still very much alive. Okay, I guess it's my turn. Number 6.
Something.
Yeah.
A moment. When you put someone up on the highest pedestal, you could become disillusioned. It's not what you thought it was, it's something else. I felt that.
That's why the
I'm
story.
talking about not only in love, but politically, okay?
Mhm.
So I guess I always think about things on a historical level, because I was a history major in college. But you can't make this is the one and only,
Yes,
greatest, because
yes,
usually they're all human.
right.
And
But
they,
look what happens. Look what happens. I mean,
May I just interrupt for a minute?
Yeah.
The chronological age, I'm still trying to decide whether she was the age of a maiden or the age of a child.
Mm.
Or does maiden mean that she had never been with a man before?
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I
What do
mean,
you think what do you think the chronological age of Annabel Lee
I
is?
think she's very young. I don't think she's a child. I think it may mirror the fact that he lost his wife. He loved dearly. He lost his wife, Eliza, and she was very young. They were a very young, romantic couple, and she lost. She was taken away.
Mhm.
And an older woman. She's older. She's definitely not a child here.
Okay.
So in the next stanza, the angels not so happy, not half so happy in heaven, when envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. So this is a very puzzling stanza to me, because you have both, again, you have the angels coveting her, they're taking her away, and you have the men, the highborn men, the highborn kingsmen, possibly coming and taking her away physically, taking her life away, and he is left chilling. He at this point, she's gone to him. She's gone to him, and I think we need to keep in mind the Genesis, which we'll talk about very shortly. When Adam and Eve leave Eden, they are escorted out by some angels, by angels with flaming swords, which we'll talk about in a moment. I don't want us to jump ahead, but I want us to complete the poem. So now we're back to Ruth for the next to last stanza. Go ahead, Ruth.
but our love, it was stronger by far than the love, wait a minute, of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of my beautiful Annabel Lee.
Okay. So now that she is gone, okay, what we're picking up here, Ruth is what? What do you pick up? She's gone. It doesn't matter whether the demons took her or the angels took her. The evil, maybe it was the evil relatives that took her away, or the angels that brought the winds that took her out to sea. We don't know. But what is he left with?
Okay, what my feeling is this, even though she's no longer here, the love that I had for her, we shared together, cannot be destroyed. It's there for me. As long as I remember it, it's still alive.
Exactly. Beautiful. Beautifully put. And so let's conclude with the final stanza. Gloria.
Yes. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulcher there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is power. That last stanza is, it just transports us to a level that I don't think we can explain. Maybe you can explain it, Gloria. What's this level that he's talking about?
Well, his love for her is infinitesimal, and no matter what, he considered or considers her part of his life, his bride, everything. No matter where she is, in her tomb by the sounding sea or wherever, she was the only one for him.
Right. That's what makes this poem beautiful, is that it shows the love, the unending, enduring, immutable love that a physical being down here can have for another physical being, even when that person is removed physically from your life, that it goes on. And that's why this poem has been, anthologized for 175 years almost, because it is such a beautiful love. It's a beautiful love poem, and to me it's hard to beat it. What I would like to do is turn it over to Rabbi Kurtz. I would like, I think, to get started with the link that we had to this past week's Parsha, which was the Kitisa Parsha. It's in Exodus. It's chapter 32, verse 1. Okay, we're going to make a very good analogy here, because very humbly, I think that in our religion, the love that God has for his people, as depicted in scripture by the great prophets, whether it's Moses or it's Isaiah or Ezekiel, the great prophets, that Hosea, is one of God's enduring love for this people, even though this people has, and often in many generations, has not consummated the covenant that we took back at Sinai, that we've abrogated the covenant, we abrogated our watch over the Beit HaMikdash 2 times. Yet through all this, God's love for us reigns supreme. It's incredible that this message from Poe is mirrored in our Hashem. So I'd like, if you can put that on the screen. And do you want to discuss this pasuk that I picked out, Rabbi Kurtz?
So
explain where we're at, and then go on with the pasuk and Rashi's explanation. Yeah,
absolutely. Before we get into that, can I share just one thing right before it?
Absolutely, please do. Anybody, just pop in.
Okay, so one thing I was thinking about when I was reading this poem because you mentioned you're going to bring up the Kruvim, but the cherubs, I guess, is the English pronunciation for it.
Yes.
But there's mention of Seraphim, of a seraph.
Sure, Seraphim. Yep.
Right, of the Seraphim that were inside the poem that we just read. And I'm not going to get too much into angelology. It's definitely far from my area of expertise.
Sure.
But it made me think about the Kruvim. You're referring to Genesis, to leaving the Garden of Eden. I was thinking of an instance of a reference to the Kruvim on the Holy Ark.
Yes.
And how it's actually referenced in a Talmudic account.
Yes. That's a good place to go. I mean, the cherubim, they're in Eden. They're in Psalm 99, which we chant Kabbalat Shabbat. You guys can look at Psalm 99. God has his hand over the cherubs. That's what it says. God's in charge of the cherub.
So we have this understanding that actually both cherubim one was male and one was female. And so what happened was, when the enemy entered the temple to destroy the temple, they came in. It was the Romans coming in during the Second Temple era. They came into the holy sanctum, and what we're told is Amar Reish Lakish, nichnasu goyim leheichal, when the outsiders, when the non-Jewish nation, the Roman, came to destroy us, they entered into the precincts of the temple. Ro kruvim hamaorin zebezen. They saw the angels were embracing each other. And then they brought it out, and they thought it was for sexual reasons. So they thought that the Jews were pagan worshipers just like anybody else. But some commentaries, they actually interpret this of showing God's embrace to the Jewish people as they're about to leave into the exile, with the Second Temple being destroyed, being thrown into Gullus and out of our land. It was God's way of giving a last embrace to the Jewish people by showing these two angels embracing one another. And I think it fits well into our story too, because the Kruvim angels were understood to be like younger, like children almost. So you have this imagery of, it's not being done for, any sexual purpose. There's nothing sensual that's in mind, but it's really like the childhood innocent love and embrace that we were thinking about in Annabel Lee. And so I just was thinking of this imagery in the Talmud of the two Kruvim embracing each other as they're about to be taken out and walked through and disgraced throughout the marketplace by the Romans.
I think that is a beautiful way to us to get into the cherubim. I really do. I sent you a photo of what the portable tabernacle, the Mishkan, looked like, and I'm sure you can flash it on there in a moment so we can see what we're talking about and how important the cherubim are in midrashic literature. There you go. This is from the most recent edition of the Art School Chumash. And now what you can see here is that this is the tabernacle facing you. It's all covered in thin pressed gold. The outside is gold. The entire height is 10 tefachim. It's very small. That's like about 40 inches. Tefach is hand breadth, so it's about 40 inches, 3.5 feet. And it says very specifically in the Torah, in building this under the direction of Bezalel, that the cherubs are on top of the Mishkan, of this holy ark, and their wings are spread, as you can see at the top here, the Aron, right, where the green Aron intersects the picture, that the wings are connecting to, and these angels are facing towards each other. And this is where the voice, it says in the pasuk, this is where the voice of God, Ohel Moed, that's the voice of testimony. This is where Aaron heard the voice of God coming from right under the wings of the angels. So this is the idea where we get the idea of the Shekhinah, the holy wings under which we are protected, okay? And so this indicates God's protection. And it says that in the Pasukim, that they are facing each other, okay? Now, also in the Talmud, it speaks about there at times, there's another mention of the cherubim in the Nevi'im where they're facing away from each other. So the rabbis say, how come? You have these two different versions of how the portable Mishkan depicts the cherubim. And so the rabbis come up with the fact that when the Israelites were following the command of God, and they were yashar, they were acting properly, the angels faced to each other, okay? When they were reprobate, when they rebelled, and they brought Avodah Zarah into the temple, they faced outward, and that's beautiful. One other thought, a very profound thought that I read from Rabbi Artscroll in one of his commentaries, is that this is a parable of man's love for each other, that man's love for each other should be almost that innocent, pure love that children, my brother and his first cousin had, they were just in love with each other at age 3. That's the way, the kind of love that brings people together, where you share, you're on the same wavelength, if you will, same spiritual level. And so this is the Martin Luther, we take it to Martin Luther, the I thou, that when you have friendship, the other person is there for you and listen to you, and you're for the other person, and you have an interplay. It's the idea behind the chavrusa, two people. It's not proper for one person to study Tanakh by himself or herself. You join in a group. The ideal is if you have a study partner where you can study and you hear each other's out, and there's a meeting of the souls, meeting of the minds. You listen and you don't agree. Like the Talmudists, they don't agree on everything, but they do listen to each other and they respond to each other. And that's the ideal relationship. And that's when the cherubim face each other. Okay, now, when the Rabbi Kurtz indicated when the Beit HaMikdash were being destroyed, the Talmud also speaks about 10 stages at which the Shekhinah, the holy presence, left the sanctuary. It didn't happen all at once. In other words, when the Babylonians came and destroyed our temple, it was building up for months. They breached the wall. They had a siege. They breached the wall. It led up to it. And so the rabbis describe how the Shekhinah went from inside the Holy of Holies. It went up to the cherubim. It separated them. That's the point that they began to turn away from each other. The wings separate from each other. And then it says it goes to the threshold of the Holy of Holies, and then it escapes. And that's a beautiful drash, a beautiful explanation of what happens when relationships fall apart. They're just the opposite of the Annabel Lee. The Annabel Lee, he maintains that right down to the end. And even though God, and we know that God withdrew from the Beit HaMikdash long before the destruction. And this is a 10-step process, the losing of the Shekhinah. And then it all happened, the final day, the 9th of Av, that's the final, but months, years before, there was leading up to this. So it's a breakup of relationship. But the beautiful thing about our relationship, and I think that's what Edgar Allan Poe has, that spiritual quality, even though it broke up for whatever reason, elements, family, anger, enmity, division that splits up families, he was always there for her, and he'll always be there for her. It's the same thing with the Jewish people. Even though we go through purges, we're destroyed, God is, we're a chosen nation. We can't help it. There's a quality about the Jewish people that God has identified with us that is forever. And despite the fact that a majority of the people are not following my ways, just a few of you, I accept you because I know you're going to come back. And I think that's that defines what love is. Love is something that will always be there. You have your fights, you have your spiffs, you have your, you're just seething with anger and envy, but you come back. You come back, and I certainly hope that this royal rift. I read what the royal family said about Meghan and Harry in California. They said, we'll always love them. We'll try to get through this together, but we'll always love them.
Time will tell.
Fine words. Fine words from their mouth to their children's ears. To Meghan, she's been so bent out of shape. I didn't watch I don't want to take us in that direction, but I'd like to first stay on Tanakh. Okay, I pause here. Come on, somebody fill in here with an idea that you have. You want to share with us?
About the royal family.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to